The world today is filled with creative people coming up with brilliant ideas for new cool products. Meanwhile, Amazon is the largest e-commerce platform with over half of all e-commerce market share. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the essential steps necessary to successfully launch an innovative product and repeatedly make it better. Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today's episode, the Big 5-0. Our 50th episode is going to cover a topic that we've talked about in different episodes over the last 49 episodes, but we're going to revisit it today. Launching an innovative product on Amazon. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media, co-author of the Amazon Jungle and host of the Day 2 podcast. With me today is my co-host Shannon and I, Amazon strategist, educator, and biz dev lead for Avenue 7 Media. Shannon, how you doing?
I'm good. I got in some good exercise this morning. I've been working out more and trying to lose a little weight as we get prepared to go to Amazon Accelerate. I use these events sort of as as a benchmark to help me reach my fitness goals. Entrepreneurship is so challenging. You've got to take time to take care of your mind and your body. You know, for all of our listeners out there, it's like, don't sacrifice that piece of it because it's so important to maintain the longevity for a great brand and a great business.
We got a lot of sellers that listen to this podcast, a lot of brands, and also a lot of agency owners. I'm always surprised when an agency person who works in another agency comes and says, "Hey, I love your podcast. I appreciate it. You are all welcome here." And it's always good to revisit these topics because things change. There's some core comments that I think are universal and will remain the same today and 10 years from now, but there's also some tweaks. I mean, innovation in itself means a lot of different things. You know, Shannon, I've talked about this in the past where I thought I was going to innovate a product and I thought I was Steve Jobs and it turned out a miserable failure. You remember the folding leg foosball table that his legs didn't properly fold. And then I learned that the cheat code here is what I learned is to listen to the Amazon shoppers that are out there. But look, innovation means a lot of different things to different people. How would you define how we'll be referring to innovative products on today's episode?
There's innovators and there's imitators, right?
Oh, I like that. We should have named the podcast that. Imitators versus imitators. I like that.
Yeah, it's true. So, we've heard the Pablo Picasso quote sort of borrowed, amateurs borrow, professionals steal. And the idea is not that we steal other people's intellectual property. That's not the concept behind it. But great people borrow ideas or, take ideas and concepts and they make them better, or they do them completely new. And so I love this quote by Malcolm Gladwell. He says, there is the distinction between borrowing that is transformative and borrowing that is derivative. And I think that a lot of the Amazon community, what we've seen taught in a lot of podcasts and webinars and conferences, is derivative innovation, which means find a successful product that's on Amazon, comb through the reviews, find a couple tweaks that you can make it a little bit better, and then launch it as your own. That's very derivative. And so in this episode, we're really going to be talking more about innovation that is transformative, that is truly a new product that doesn't really exist in the marketplace. You don't have successful competitors or rivals. And we've had this before where a client comes to us and we do a market research report. We go, there's not really a market for your product yet, right? There's not a rival that we can compare this to. It's very, very new. It's really talking about those truly unique products, not just those minor iterations of other products in the marketplace.
So Shannon, let me ask you a question. In Apple, with Steve Jobs being such an innovator over the years, is an overused analogy, but I want to ask you the question. In your example, would you consider the iPod to be transformative or derivative when it was introduced?
I think it was transformative because if you look at the impact that it had, and there's three keys, Jason, for an innovative product to be successful. Number one is simplicity. It has to be simple to use. If you want somebody to do something new, it's got to be simple. Two is it has to be excellent. The quality has to be there and speak for itself. And three, it has to be able to integrate with other products and services. And so, yes, there was other MP3 players out there. Yes, there was you had Walkman, cassette players and that kind of thing. But the iPod truly was transformative because it transformed the music industry because it was simpler to use. It provided better quality audio, 1,000 songs in your pocket, and it integrated directly with iTunes, meaning you could dump your CDs onto your computer and add them to your device faster, easier, and better than any other product. So I would 100% say that was transformative because of those three key elements.
And I would 100% agree. And there's one more element that I would add. It was sexy as hell.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful and elegant in its design. You wanted it it became an object of desire that people wanted to have. I think that's a really important element when you start talking about transformative. Certainly the functionality and that simplicity that you laid out is a really good point, Shannon, because I remember having one of those MP3 players before the iPod came out, and I couldn't figure out how to use the damn thing. I couldn't figure out how to download it. I couldn't find my music. It was a disaster. And there were so many clicks and buttons that you had to do. You had to literally be an engineer to make it work. And I think Steve Jobs saw that as an opportunity in the market. He probably looked at the market size of the MP3 players and the growth trend and saw this is a growing category. The existing products out there are crap. I can do better. Would that be a good summary of how transformative products can happen?
I call it acquire and adapt. They acquired Tony Fadell and his MP3 player and some of their technology, but they also went to Sony and said, what are you doing? They said, well, we've got this little hard drive. It could hold about 1,000 songs. We don't really know. And so I think it was Rubenstein. He calls up Jobs and says, I need a check for $10 million. Goes to Sony and says, make us every single one of these that you can and don't sell them to anybody else. And that's really how they launched it. But usually when they acquired other technology, they made it simpler by removing superfluous features, not adding more. And so there's an element of inherent complexity. Microsoft is great at complexity. Apple's great at simplicity. It's why the iPod succeeded and why the Microsoft Zune failed and ultimately crashed. So yeah, you've got to look at holistically. You've got to look at trends from a technology standpoint. You have to look at trends from a cultural standpoint, because, and this is really key, Jason, success of an innovative product depends less on technological capability and more on its ability to align with current cultural values. If you're simply too early, if people aren't willing to accept it yet, you're going to fail, or you're going to have to work a long time to build that demand. And it can be done. Lyft and Airbnb, even Audible, took time to ramp their technology up and ramp their products or services up to the point where people are willing to adopt them. But it's something for people to be aware of, that it's not just that it's capable of being developed, but you have to make sure it aligns with current cultural values. Do people want it?
That was a very interesting use case, the iPod example. Take a minute, Shannon, and talk about why innovative products are created and what does that process look like?
Yeah, I typically see this happen one of two ways. People either develop something for themselves. You look at like Sarah Blakely with Spanx. She literally cut the feet off her pantyhose and said, this makes my dress look so much better, right? Shapewear, sort of inventing the category of shapewear. Or people observe somebody else and say, I see that problem. I think it can be done better. And a great example is Dean Kamen looking at somebody struggling to get their wheelchair down a set of stairs. And he thought, I think there's a better way to do this. He wanted sort of inventing Segway out of that and this whole, sort of incredibly expensive wheelchair that sort of climbs up and down stairs and it can, hold people upright sort of at eye level. It really starts with one of those two arenas, but just because you have a problem or just because you see somebody else have a problem doesn't mean that everybody has a problem. And it doesn't mean that there's enough people who have that problem and are willing to pay to solve that problem for it to create a market for that product, demand for that product.
I'm reminded of another example where there was a need, a really important need, is Mark Robinson, right? Mark is retired now. I think he's in Thailand hanging out, but he built walking pets and determined that there was a better thing to do for pets than euthanize them when they lost the use of their hind legs, and built, innovative dog wheelchairs with these great wheels. And I mean, what a great opportunity to see that there's a need. Why, we love these pets. Why would we euthanize them when we could provide them mobility? And the technology was there. You just had to piece it together and put it together in a cool way. And, I just love seeing that product line and all the happy pets and pet owners smiling and the pets with the tongues wagging after doing a trail run with their brand new dog wheelchair, right? What a great example of that.
Oftentimes the challenge is, how do you get your innovative product out there if people don't know it exists yet? If people have a dog that has lost a leg or in some cases multiple legs, how do I get in front of those people, right, to make sure that they know my product exists? So we'll cover that a little bit later in the episode as well.
So let's talk about proof of concept. You may have a good idea, but that doesn't mean it's a product that people will actually want to buy, like my folding leg foosball table, for example. How do you go about determining this idea that you have is actually something that's marketable?
I think there's hidden motivations of why people buy, right? We often don't buy things that we need. We buy things that we want and we claim that we need them. But if I look at my credit card purchases over the last 12 months, most of the stuff I purchased, I don't need, Jason. But some of the reasons why people buy is, you've got a frustration or annoyance, right? It's such a problem. I wish I could solve this frustration. Sometimes it's for comfort or ease, right? So I do this every time I do yard work. It's uncomfortable. I want something, for our kids to give them baths. There's a little bath mat that we put down, and it just protects your knees when you're down on your knees scrubbing your kid before they go to bed at night, right? So there's things that we buy for comfort. There's things that we buy for status and prestige. My friend Jen Harada talked about this with the AirPods. I said, I visited him in New York. I said, Jen, aside from the fact that the subways smell, the one thing that's unique about New York is that everybody's wearing AirPods. I said, why is that? He goes, it's a status symbol, Shannon. People wear them to show that they have a certain status, that they can afford them. And so sometimes people buy things for status, not because you need it, because you want to show off. We buy things for productivity or time saving, right? We buy things for convenience. Sometimes we buy things just for recreation or leisure. I bought a basketball. I bought some rock climbing shoes. I bought shoes to go play ultimate frisbee, right? We just do it for fun. And then sometimes things really are a necessity. Toilet paper, right? Great example. So I think people have to ask themselves the question again, how big is the problem? How badly do people really need to solve it? Some great innovations, Jason, that come to mind. The ride-on suitcase, right? Have you seen this? People, they sit on their suitcase and it has motorized wheels. So you push a button, you literally drive around the airport.
Come on.
Yeah, it's cool, but how many people really need that and are willing to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
It's a very small percentage. This one is really funny. There's shoe umbrellas that you can buy to keep your shoes dry in the rain, right? So it's a little umbrella that attaches to each shoe. There's a guy who has an entire Instagram feed called Unnecessary Inventions. And my favorite one was a revolving ice cream holder for people who love sugar, but are too lazy to actually turn the cone. It's an electronic cone holder, and you push a button and the ice cream cone revolves. So
those are solutions to problems that don't really exist, right?
Bingo. That's exactly it. Those are important things to consider, but now I think we could start getting into a little more of the meat of it.
Okay, Shannon, as you said, let's get into the meat of this a little bit more. So they've come up with this idea. They actually think that there's a market for it, and they've created a product that's unique and innovative in the space. It has the potential to be transformational. How do you go from having this great product now as an innovator and an entrepreneur to launching it and putting it out in the wild for sale?
The first question, just because I've coached so many inventors over the last 10 years, is you have to ask yourself, are you the best person to launch the product? You may be the best person to create the product, but I often find that engineers who are good at creating things are not the best entrepreneurs and good at marketing them. Even Starbucks, a multi-billion-dollar international company, when they launched their shelf-stable coffees and products, they didn't do it themselves. They partnered with Pepsi to launch that product. They said, look, we're going to create it. You go get it out there and you go deliver it. And I've just seen so many inventors struggle. They don't understand marketing. They don't understand how to run a business, how to raise money, get the capital, marketing, sell through. They don't know how to find the audience. I've just seen that challenge over and over again. So there may be times when you need to ask yourself the question, do I have what it takes to actually get this out there and launch it? Or do I need to partner with somebody who's really got those skills already and the experience already to help me do this? I've just found over and over, Jason, that entrepreneurs like yourself, you're a natural born entrepreneur, you have an uncanny ability to know who the customers are, where to find them, and how much to charge. That's kind of the key of an entrepreneur, right? It's less about running the business. That's sort of a secondary piece, but knowing who your customers are, where to find them, and how much to charge. And I think Michael Dell is my favorite example of this. He was in high school. He had a newspaper delivery route. And if I'd had a newspaper delivery route, I would have just delivered newspapers for the summer and collected a couple $100. At the end of his summer, he bought a sports convertible vehicle. And the reason he did that is because he recognized that two types of people bought papers: people who just got married and people who had just moved. So he sent a buddy of his down to the courthouse to get all the records of people who had requested marriage licenses and had them go out and send out initial samples of newspapers to all of them. And then he went to building developers who were building new apartment complexes and new housing complexes and said, can I give all of your tenants and all of your residents a week's full or a month of free newspapers? Sure, no problem. He bought a car at the age of 15, 16 because he had that natural entrepreneur spirit. He knew where to find those people, how much to charge, and where the demand was. And so there's a lot to consider of, are you the right person? And if not, you might need to partner. But it really starts from an e-commerce standpoint. You got to build out a website. Building a Shopify or D2C website is probably the simplest, easy way to get your product out there. You can ship it from your garage. A lot of people, you talk about creating sort of this minimum viable product, but it starts with having a place that people can go and then using social media to promote it. Is there any engagement? Is there any interest in what you have? If you don't use social media or you're not good at social media, you got to find somebody who is. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle for months on end. But having, sort of a landing place where people can buy your product and then starting to use social media to build that audience, that crowd, is really important. And you can also use crowdsourcing platforms like Kickstarter, right? You're still going to have to drive traffic. That's why the social media piece is so important. But social media allows you to engage with hundreds and thousands of people who have similar interests. If you've got a product that is specific to diabetics, if you've got a product that's specific to moms, there are ways that you can engage with large numbers of people to reach them and get that proof of concept.
It reminds me of the story from the co-author, Rick Cesario, from the book Amazon Jungle, a story that Rick told me about GoPro cameras, because that was one of his big clients.
Sure.
That he used direct-to-consumer marketing with. And I remember sitting at the Issaquah Coffee House in just south of Seattle there and asking Rick, how did you know that GoPro, when they were just had this little booth out of a Volkswagen van, a 1960s Volkswagen van at the trade show, that this thing was going to take off? And he said his secret sauce was he loved finding innovators that created a product that had a very small subset of customers that were using it. And in GoPro's case, they were using it to record their surfing. They were surfers. So they made it waterproof and they put it on their head, and they were recording all these, when they were tubing it or doing these long rides, surfing. And he thought it was really smart. And what he would do to develop these great direct-to-consumer campaigns, which of course can be replicated on social media now, he would talk to the users of those products and ask them a series of questions. What do you like about this product? What do you not like about this product? What gets you most excited about it? And from there, he would develop his marketing messaging platform and put a direct-to-consumer TV marketing campaign together. Most people don't realize, but that's how GoPro launched. That's how they became so successful. Now they're on every store shelf, every electronics store in the world, but they started with that very small subset of users in the surfer community and then expanded to extreme sports. You got people jumping out of airplanes now with this thing on their head. And then they expanded to broader markets over time. So I think that real world customer feedback from a subset of users already using the product is a very critical component to innovation as well, Shannon. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, you have to. And I like the idea of having a concentrated group. GoPro had the ability to expand beyond, largely because of the technological capability and the cultural values at the time. People wanted to capture what they were doing and share it, online and social media, right? So whether I'm doing mountain biking or kayaking or whatever, that technological and cultural alignment is what allowed it to take off. But absolutely, you've got to start somewhere. And nobody really knows the full market size because oftentimes brands are creating their own demand. So
that's right. Okay, so we covered the product creation. We talked about getting out into the wild, putting this thing out in the wild and see if it can survive and develop a core group of users and customers. Speaking of customer feedback, Amazon is a really good place to get real world customer ratings and reviews. What's the most effective way for innovators and inventors to launch their product on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazon really is the best way. And we talked about it in a previous episode. Maybe only 1 out of 100 customers are actually going to leave a product review. 10 out of 100 will leave a product rating. But you can still learn so much by the questions you get asked, by the buyer-seller messaging, by the return reasons. You've got to collect all that data and really take it into account. But, for our listeners who haven't heard it, if you're in this space and this episode is interesting and you haven't heard it, go back and listen to our Thinking of an Amazon First Launch Think Again episode, because we really covered this aspect of, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could have launched first on Amazon. Now, it's actually typically a secondary platform. You want to launch on your own D2C website first, get some of that proof of concept, because Amazon is so complicated, it's so competitive, and it's so expensive that if you show up on Amazon first, you can just waste thousands of dollars and just hours and hours of time.
Or 100,000 like I did with my foosball table, Shannon.
Or 100,000 if you're at Jason's level of mistakes. It starts with a great listing. You have to have a great listing, and you've got to have video. Video is essential. People have to see it to believe it. Innovative products. I worked with an innovative broom company, right? You think, well, what could happen in the world of innovation with brooms? But it really was an innovative product when it came to sweeping. And we showed people pictures and they just didn't get it. The video was like, aha. And it only took 15, 20 seconds. You have that aha moment, and they have to see it to really get why it's better, how it's different. So make sure that you invest in video as well.
I think that's especially true with an innovative. The more innovative, the higher the need for video, right? Video has become table stakes, but I think it's even a bigger ask and a requirement for brand new innovative products so people can see it, right? That's a great point, Shannon.
I would shoot video before photos. Yeah, I mean, you got to do both, but you have to do video for innovation. You've got to show people how your product works, why it's better, and how it truly solves their problem and makes their life better. One of the things that I talked about at Prosper Show last year when I talked about SEO is sometimes you have an innovative product that doesn't have SEO. That's really challenging because you're like, what do I include in my listing? How do I drive that traffic? And so what's interesting is when it comes to innovative products, if there's no SEO, you still want to be on Amazon, but your marketing strategy may involve driving external traffic to Amazon. In some cases, if you don't have access to Amazon DSP especially, you're going to need to go after audience-based targeting first. And so I found that the 3 or 4 most critical aspects are using affiliates, using influencers, partnerships, and social media. And we can break those down. In some cases, people are more than one. You can be an affiliate and an influencer, but affiliate just means they're an Amazon associate and they get paid every time somebody clicks on their link, goes to Amazon, buys the product. They get a small 3, 4, 5% commission. Influencers, though, you can send products to social media influencers, say, hey, I got this great new product. Do you mind just doing a review? Can I send you a free sample? Share with your audience if you like it. And then we could talk about some other ways that we can cross-promote it. Maybe I could do a discount. You could do a giveaway. There's a lot of great ways to work with influencers. But that's a great way to get in front of your audience who may not know your product exists and may not know to look for your product because it's so new. And then the last way is really through partnerships. So this is typically a product or a company that has the audience and they're complementary. Maybe your product is complementary to their product. There's some alignment there where you can say, hey, let's partner together and we can share my product with your audience and you can get these benefits out of it. That's a great way to get in front of new audiences. And like I already said, social media, organic and paid, building that tribe, building that followers and audience is really, really important.
Especially with some of that generative AI out there, you can, the opportunity to post as much free content as possible, videos, etc., about your product and the excitement around your product is a real low-hanging fruit area for sure. Those are all great ways. That external traffic to Amazon, we have so much anecdotal and correlated data that says the more external coming from off Amazon to your listings or your storefront on Amazon, the higher your revenue on Amazon is. And we see it day in and day out over here. One feeds the other. It's dogs and cats living together in this e-commerce world that we live in today.
The one thing that I want to say in caution is because it's so prevalent out there, you may come across some influencer marketing companies or a review company that promises to get you some great reviews on Amazon, help you launch your product. I want to sort of issue a warning to our audience. You have to be extremely careful about those. And the reason is because you have to dig a little deeper beneath the surface between the marketing copy on the website, which all looks great and wonderful, and all of them say, TOS compliant. But the one thing that you have to ask is, number one, are the influencers themselves going on Amazon to buy the product? That's kind of, red flag number one. Number two is, are those influencers themselves going on Amazon and reviewing your product? And number three, are those influencers getting reimbursed off Amazon? Those are kind of three key telltale signs, Jason, that I've seen that a lot of these companies don't disclose. But the idea is that you're just paying the influencer to review your product to their audience, and you get these sales and reviews from the audience. It actually comes from the influencer themselves. And I guarantee in most cases that influencer is not disclosing in their review, I got paid for this, right? And it's not just an Amazon TOS thing. I think the FTC is eventually going to come down on this pretty hard, because it's basically, customer manipulation. That influencer is getting paid to review your product. And if they're not disclosing it, you have to be very, very careful about manipulating rank by having somebody purchase a product on Amazon and reimbursing them off Amazon, regardless of what they call the process, right? It's a lot of cloak and dagger.
Yeah, no question. FTC's already levied some fines about fake reviews, and Lena Khan's department has made it very clear that they're going to do more to beef up their policing of fake reviews across the entire internet. So great public service announcement there. You gave a great talk at Prosper Show this year. I really enjoyed it. I know you had a lot of value about SEO on Amazon, and I know you're very tied into the SEO community and how to drive Google traffic, not just Amazon traffic. What's the best way to go after some of that organic traffic for an innovator product who may not necessarily have keywords yet?
It's what I call alternate terms. And this is where you've got, say, a baby product for new moms, but moms don't know about your product yet, so they're not searching for it. You've got to find a way to get in front of them. And like I said, video is a great way, but you can do two things. You could actually advertise on the search terms that they're looking for, whether it's diapers or, changing tables or, baby food, et cetera. Or you can actually even advertise on those products directly using sponsored products, using sponsored display, and even video. And so that video advertising against, similar products, not that the customer was looking to buy that product or your product. It's just that they are the right audience and they weren't aware your product existed. It's a way of getting some of that top of funnel search and visibility, really, really valuable. On the other side, Jason, sometimes SEO doesn't exist and you've got to go build that demand. And so, Bella Booty is an incredible brand. They built this incredible hip thrust belt. And honestly, Jason, before they started, hip thrust belt really wasn't even a term. You go on Jungle Scout and Helium 10 before, and you just look at the trend, it's like it's just shot up and skyrocketed because they actually created that demand off Amazon using social media. And now they're on Amazon. And of course, what happens is you've got innovators and imitators, right? So what the challenge is, once you create that demand, you have to defend your brand, you have to defend your territory, because they consider that a branded keyword. Even though it doesn't have their brand name in it, it's essentially their keyword. So there's an element where you have to go create your own demand for a product that people don't get yet.
I love the guys over at Bella Booty. They just get it. What a cool thing to basically invent a keyword phrase for Google and to own that keyword phrase from an SEO perspective. Let me ask you, following the Bella Booty example, the hip thrust belt, really great innovative product in the fitness industry, home fitness. What's the outcome? If you use the hip thrust belt, are you looking for tighter glutes? Are you looking for better core? What are the outcomes that the product creates?
The hip thrust belt really is about doing that basic hip thrust motion. But, once people go, if you go to Amazon and search Bella Booty or hip thrust belt, will show up at the top, they'll show up at the top for both, but they actually have several different ways that you can use the product. So you can use it over your shoulders for squats. You can use it for push-ups. And so we actually demonstrate on the listings all the different ways that you can use it. And more importantly, the benefits that the customer gets out of it. It's an all-in-one exercise tool. And so again, it's about that simplicity, that excellence, and that integration. Hey, instead of bringing this whole total gym or whatever, with you, you could just bring your Bella booty and a couple weights. You go on vacation, travel, and still get your daily workout in. So it's really about simplicity and a holistic benefit to the client or the customer.
My question from an SEO perspective is, if you launch a website, and maybe the guys at Bella Booty did this, but could you say, get tighter buns, to exercises to get better core exercise, in other words, advertise and SEO their website for the benefits of the product and then back into the hip thrust belt. Was that part of the strategy?
Yeah, you can do that as well. I mean, I think for their initial website, it was very D2C, it was very direct response. So a single landing page, going after their primary terms.
And they use social media very well too to drive a lot of traffic that way, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, they did such a good job. They've got such an equipped team there, but it really isn't a matter of, understanding what the customers are looking for as an outcome and figuring out how do we target that, right? So if people are looking for other products that can give them that core exercise, most people aren't going on Amazon and saying, give me a product that gives me a core exercise. But if you look at similar products that deliver the same results, you can advertise on those products with those keywords. So
Understood.
It's all about getting in front of the right audience, using video, and you've got to lay the foundation with those initial product reviews, but make sure they're legitimate product reviews from real customers who spent their money to buy the product. No friends and family. Amazon flags that stuff super fast, and you'll get restricted from Amazon reviews or get your account shut down. So be very careful with that. But that's the process, Jason, to go through and get your innovative products figured out, get those initial prototypes, and then get it launched onto the largest e-commerce platform.
Yeah, no, it's really great stuff, Shannon. Thanks for breaking it down. When I talk to new entrepreneurs or young folks looking to become entrepreneurs, there's really two things that I think that hold them back a lot. Number one is it's sort of a failure to launch, right? Getting started is always the hardest part almost. And, sometimes it's better to know less than more. I always encourage folks, if you have this idea, do it, go, try it. And the second thing is, I think they sometimes, and this is a phrase we talk about internally with our key leadership team, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And in today's day and age, so long as you're following compliance and performance requirements, depending on your category, you can put a product out into the wild without expecting it to be perfect. But if you put it out there and you listen to the negative reviews, and by the way, you'll get a lot more than 1 out of 100 reviews if there's a problem with your product. People are much more likely to write something that made them unhappy. Don't be discouraged by that. Use that as gold. Burn through your inventory. Capture the 3 or 4 things that real people with credit cards use to buy your product and interact with it, and took the time out of their busy day to tell you what was wrong with it, and go fix it. Perfection will stop you from getting launched, and that expectation of perfection immediately is a killer. So don't do that, entrepreneurs, new, or even if you're starting out and launching a brand new product. There's 2 billion products listed on Amazon today. There's probably an equal number listed on the internet. There's a ton of opportunity. The next great products that are going to be the next $1 billion brands haven't been invented yet. And that could be you. I know you got some ideas. Don't be afraid to get started, and don't demand perfection out of the gate. Understand that this is a process, that each time you reorder that thing, if you can make it better and make more shoppers happier, the better your product will become, and the more opportunity you have to create something transformational. So that was my final analysis recap there, Shannon. Thank you for spending the time with us here today to give some great advice and thoughts and process thinking for our entrepreneurs and our sellers who listen to the Day 2 podcast. If you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's the number 2 podcast.com. And lastly, if you know anyone else who would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. Thanks for listening, and happy selling.